seems to me like you've gained a superpower that a lot of men hope for and wish for and don't think is real, which is understanding women.
Guys, take good care of yourselves. Women are turned on by a man who's...
From the author behind No More Mr. Nice Guy to a life-changing coach,
Dr. Robert Glover has worked with people to help them find balance, self-assurance, and meaningful connections.
Our guest today has been a true game changer in the realm of relationships and self-development.
One of the things that I've found from just working with lots and lots of couples is that in every relationship, somebody's going to get left.
What do you say to the men who are terrified of marriage because they've seen the consequences of divorce?
The world of the masculine is scary. It is life and death. Men tend to take the jobs that are the most dangerous. Men die on the job. So boys have been trying to please the women, since the day they're born. I thought I looked really good. And my then wife quit wanting to have sex with me. She said, well, you look good. You could have anybody. Why would you want to be with me? And then she went and had an affair.
No, he's the best. I don't think I could find better, honestly. My friend introduced me to him. He said, you have to meet this guy. He doesn't wear shoes. And I hate shoes. He's perfect. We're perfect. Ah, nice! Misery Desiree podcast.
How's your back, by the way?
Much better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, a few weeks back, you were not feeling so good.
I went to the gym and I was a bit sedentary for a couple weeks. I had this giant project, and that is a lesson just not to stop ever walking and working out. So I took a couple weeks off and I did some natural movements, but not a big gym workout. And then I was like, okay, back to the gym. So I did a gym workout. I think it was like a regular workout, but a little bit harder. And I think I was pushing the sled. I think that's what I did. I was pushing the sled, and I think maybe I didn't engage my glutes enough. And then I was fine. And then 2 days later, I couldn't get out of bed. I was just all of a sudden, yeah. So it's hard to say what happened, but I'm much better.
Everybody always has their theories, like where you caught the cold from. I know I caught the cold from that. No, we don't. We have viruses in our nose all the time, and I'm also a big believer, kind of mind-body connection, that when the back goes out, is probably more likely an uncomfortable emotion we're not dealing with than some movement we made, because we probably make those movements all the time, But same thing, my back's been a little tweaky this week, and it took me a while to track it down. Last Friday, my wife and I went to an attorney's office. I live here in Mexico. They have a way of, when you buy a house, you have to get a deed of trust because I'm not a citizen. And I had this thing where if I die, it was going to go partly to my wife, mostly, and partly to my son. And that was going to be awkward. So, two people, because it's her home. So we went and took care of that, where when I die, it'll all go to her and my son will get other benefits. Okay. And so we did that at the attorney, then we stopped at a Home Depot, and we got all these big boxes of bathroom tiles. So we're remodeling now for the third bathroom in our home. And when we got home, I was, moving these boxes. They're pretty heavy, moving from the back of the Jeep over to, the front porch, and didn't think anything of it. I work out fairly regularly, and next morning I get up, I'm fine, and I get up out of the chair to go for a walk with the dog, and I feel a tweak. And I go, oh, I didn't feel that 15 minutes ago. I know I didn't just do something. And so I really kind of just focused around what emotional stuff might be up. And then about a day later, it dawned on me, it probably was lifting those heavy, tiles that I probably, like you said, didn't have my, abs engaged, or, my glute was too tight, and so I was out of balance or whatever. But so I haven't been in great pain, but just every time I move a certain way, I feel it. So
yeah, that warning tweak.
That warning tweak.
That
I think keep breathing.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think you're right about the emotional thing. That makes a lot of sense. Also, it's I don't know if you've heard of George Soros. He's like a finance guy, and he's implicated in a lot of
Yeah.
conspiracy theories for reasons
Yeah,
I
I'd
don't
say
really understand.
he gets kind of like Bill Gates is trying to exterminate most of the world population. I go, why would Bill Gates do that? People buy his fucking software. Why would he kill off a bunch of people? So the George Soros stuff I've never quite understood either. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So he wrote this book called The Alchemy of Finance, and he talks about how when his stock portfolio is wrong, his back goes out, and so every time he has back pain, he looks at his stock portfolio and then figures out which stock shouldn't be there,
Well, where to
or which
balance
stock
it,
needs to be
yeah.
adjusted, and then rebalances, and his back is fine.
Well,
And he's yeah.
I'd even say it may often be the uncomfortable emotions of good things happening to us that are just as likely to throw our body out of whack as bad things happening. Because that's the first thing I asked when my back got out of whack. I thought, is this because good things are happening? I just gotten on the scale earlier that morning, and I'm the leanest I've been in 25 years. And I go, does that mean I'm uncomfortable with making this powerful transition, into stronger, leaner? There's another good book called The Healing of Back Pain by a guy named Dr. John Sarno, who's a New York back surgeon. He's dead now, but I read it 20 plus years ago when I had debilitating back pain. I was leading men's group, laying on the floor. I was just going through a mess. And he says 80% of back pain is caused by repression of uncomfortable emotions.
Wow.
And I thought, well, I've been to acupuncture, massage therapy, chiropractic, hot, cold. I was doing I thought, well, I am going through a really messy divorce and battling over the rights to my book. And I'm going, And as soon as I realized that, it started getting better. When I quit stressing about the stress of my back being out, I go, okay, that makes sense. And I recommend the book to a lot of people, but I never tell them the premise of the book. Because if you say that the premise of the book is that back pain is often related to, repression of uncomfortable emotions. No, I really did throw my back out. I really do have a herniated disc. I really do. So I don't tell them now what the book's about. I just read it. Just read it.
Yeah, absolutely. The back is it's the thing that holds the entire body together. Like it's so connected to every facet of the body that I think if something is out, it will reflect it. Like it makes perfect sense. But I'm wondering why you say I've never heard about positive emotions being associated with back pain.
Well, I don't know if just back pain in general, but okay. Carl Jung, got the story told of, if somebody come in and say, I lost my job, he'd say, well, that's fantastic. Now the door's open for us to do some real work. Or if somebody come in and say, I got a promotion, he goes, that's too bad. We don't change much when things are going well.
Oh.
And kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with the book, Existential Kink. She draws a lot.
I haven't read it.
It's kind of a shotgun approach of a lot of different, maybe psychological woo-woo approaches to stuff, but there's some good stuff in it. And she quotes Carl Jung a lot and says, having is evidence of wanting. So our unconscious will invite things into our life just because our unconscious wants to experience everything. Our conscious mind goes, why the fuck is this happening? I don't want this to be happening. So one of the things I found about me, and I think it's true for a lot of people, we kind of, Gay Hendricks has a book called The Big Leap, and he talks about upper limiting, that, most of us get really uncomfortable when our lives are going too well and have risen above kind of what we're used to, what we're familiar with. This is the unknown. And, we feel kind of untethered, like, well, what to expect? And, talking about me getting in good shape, one of the things that I realized is that me getting in good shape, I've had negative experiences every time I got in good shape in my life. It's always good to start the recorder before we get going, right? So all these stories come out. The interview began while I was eating my peanut butter and jelly. Or my
fine.
But when I was in graduate school, so back when I was in my 20s, so 40-something years ago, I took up running. I was running 10K races, and I got really lean, and I thought I looked really good. And my then wife, first wife, quit wanting to have sex with me, just like quit. And I go, I look good. Why wouldn't you want to have sex with me? And finally, my first wife was not much for actually telling me what she was thinking or feeling. But she said, well, you look good. You could have anybody. Why would you want to be with me? And I go, that is stupid logic. You know, I do want to be with you. And just because you think I can be with anybody, you withdraw from me? So anyway, that led to her withdrawing. Okay, you do have a lot of airplanes where you're at. Good thing with Riverside, you can take that sound out if you have the right sound.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then in my second marriage, 25 years ago, almost probably to the date, 25 years ago, I got really lean in a fitness competition, got down to 9% body fat. I was strong,
Wow.
I was lean. And during that whole time, my then second wife didn't want to have sex with me. So, you just feel different, or your chest is prickly where you're shaving it. And then she went and had an affair she went to Italy and had an affair with some guy, did sexual things with him that she never did with me. And then came back and told me all kinds of crazy stories about it. So that there I had success. And that's not, okay, 12 years ago, again, I got on a really good diet, was working with a personal trainer, got pretty good shape again. My father died. 3 months later, my brother dies. About 7 months later, my sister dies. Yeah, they're unrelated. All of these events are completely unrelated to me getting into good condition. But our nervous systems don't work on logic. Our nervous system work on emotion, right? And emotion isn't necessarily logical, and emotion might make cause and effect, might look for causality when it's just correlation, right? Our nervous system does that. So I've known for a while when I've struggled to like kind of, get into good shape, get lean, get strong. I thought, I know there's some psychological, unconscious nervous system thing that says when I do, something bad's going to happen. And, it seems to involve death of relationship, death of desire, death of, people. And so when my back went out last Saturday morning, after I'd gotten off the scale earlier, and I'm down to 81 kilos, which is the lowest I've been in 25 years, I thought, maybe that's it. And maybe it is playing into it. So I'm actually having to do my own internal psychological work of knowing that at any moment I might start sabotaging the progress I've made, because my emotional operating system says something bad's going to happen. It's soon. It's just around the corner. Could be your mother. My mother's 89. She's not in the best health, and could be your mom. Could be this. Could be that. Now I kind of hyper vigilant with what my wife eats, and people around me, and I'm just kind of watching. I'm being the observer of this process, and I know I'll come through the other side of it. But I know there's probably a piece either that I will either unconsciously self-sabotage and start putting weight back on, quit going to the gym, quit counting my macros, quit, doing the things I know work, or I'll be just waiting for whatever that bad thing is going to be. And, our unconscious minds try to make adjustments to, make all this stuff work. And I don't know, maybe we even invite it. I don't know. So I'm in that place of going, all right, I'm having success. What's next? What's next? Does something bad follow the success, or do I self-sabotage the success? But just knowing that about myself, hopefully without being too OCD-ish about it or overly analytical about it, I can just be the noticer of it and just be curious about it.
The first thing that I think about is that usually we have this idea of trauma in society, and trauma comes from like, oh, my dad hit me when I was a kid, which he didn't, by the way. But like, my mom didn't give me enough hugs, type of thing.
All
like,
that stuff, yeah.
And it's like you've actually realized in your own psyche that these two totally uncorrelated things happened, and that's giving you some type of trauma, if you want to call it trauma.
Yeah, a trauma response at least.
Yeah, a trauma response. And that's really interesting for me because it kind of unlocks this new door of, oh, it doesn't have to be something like logical that happened to you. It's not like you have to, there's this idea that, well, I mean, I don't know. There's this idea that like a lot of people have a fear of success, which I
Yeah.
just don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I think a lot of people do. Yeah, I've been a therapist for 40 years, so I've listened to a lot of people, tell their stories, and I've watched my own, self-limiting behavior. And so let me give an analogy. I don't know if you like science fiction or outer space movies, but almost every space movie has to do with the same existential fear of basically spinning off into nothingness. If you leave the planet, you're leaving the security of planet Earth. Until you get out in outer space and you look back and go, that's just a tiny little pebble spinning through the cosmos. It's not, the secure anchored place. Now the spaceship is their security. They're like the Major Tom, he's spinning in a tin can. And then, now it's time to leave the ship. And, now there's the existential angst of leaving the ship, that piece of security, going for the spacewalk, doing whatever. Then the meteorites come and, I can't remember the movie was with George Clooney and Sandra Bullock. And, yeah, like Sandra Bullock's an astronaut, right? So, or in 2001, he's locked outside the door. Hal, let me in. Or the aliens come, and they get on Sigourney Weaver. Something, happens outside the spaceship. Or we got to go land on the asteroid and destroy it before it destroys. But the human condition is this angst over the unknown, of not knowing what's the other side. If we get in a ship and sail, do we sail off the edge of the earth? People used to have that fear. Pioneers that ventured west, wherever west was, and whatever continent you're on. What's out there? Are there savages? What are you going to run into? Are we ever going to see them again? And certain people have always kind of had that pioneer spirit, and they'll go be astronauts. They'll go into space. They'll be the pioneers. They'll get on the ship and sail around the world. Most of us don't. Most of us like to be tethered. We like to be anchored to something that feels familiar to us. It feels like, whatever it is, it might be the ghetto of our hometown, and it's a ghetto, but it's the ghetto we know, right? And that's a metaphor. It could be, the emotional toxicity of our family. Well, we know it's toxic and crazy, but we know it. We know that crazy. Erich Fromm, psychiatrist, wrote a book called Escape from Freedom. Wrote it after World War II, kind of explaining why people were pulled into Nazism and fascism. And the basic premise is we are deathly afraid of freedom. We will trade away our freedom like nobody's business. I do this. I do it in relationship. The analogy I use is that I get into a relationship with a partner. I put a handcuff on my wrist, put the other handcuff on her wrist, give her the key, and resent the hell out of her because I've lost my freedom, that I can't go do what I want anymore. You're looking like, people do that? Guys do that? Yeah, and a lot of people, we all seem to have certain things that we'll put the ankle cuff, the wrist cuff, whatever, and we'll anchor ourselves to that thing. And it's kind of interesting. I live in Mexico, and I've learned Spanish in my 50s and 60s because my wife's Mexican and doesn't speak English, so I got to learn Spanish, which I'm happy about. I always wanted to. And words are so interesting that if you ask a native Spanish speaker, how do you say the word wife in Spanish? Do you know any Spanish?
Esposa, is that right?
Esposa. Esposa is correct.
Yeah.
And so plural would be esposas, okay? Then you ask a native Spanish speaker, how do you say the word handcuffs in Spanish? And they go, esposas. It's the same word. And, they grow up, they never do make the connection to the word wives, and handcuffs are the same word in their language, So it's like they don't even make that connection. That's how subtle all of this is. So, as Viktor Frankl was writing about this, escape from freedom, we have the opportunity to be free, and we will find ways to lock ourselves down. Now, we do it in all of these creative ways. I do it in relationship. I give away my keys, my freedom to my partner. And for a few years now, I've been, just playing with the idea, how do I be in a sexually monogamous relationship with a partner that I choose to be with, and not give away any other personal freedom along the way.
Can you give me an example of what personal freedoms you're giving up in this relationship?
You know, the funny thing is true for me and true for a lot of people, sometimes partners demand we give up our freedoms. There's something called a fused emotional relationship. And that is basically the definition of fused emotional relationship is you belong to me, therefore you should. You know, you're my wife, you're my girlfriend, you're my husband, you're my boyfriend, therefore you should. Like a woman might say to her husband, well, you know, you're my husband, you should listen to me talk about my bad day at work. And the husband's going, it's boring. You have the same bad day every day at work. I come home and you complain about, you know, Jessica did this because Jessica's so fucking insecure. And I listen to that every day. Well, you should listen to it. You should want to listen to it. I worked with a guy, this was years ago, just came to mind. He had a girlfriend that he was living with, I'm pretty sure. She liked hobby, you know, knitting, you know, gluing glitter on stuff, you know. And she'd go to these hobby conventions. And she not only wanted her boyfriend to go with her to the hobby conventions, right? She wanted him to like it as much as she did. And she was pissed and angry because he didn't like it as much as he didn't even like going. He didn't want to go. He had no interest. So she took that as a personal affront of a lack of love. I had another couple I worked with. This is years ago as well. It's funny how these are coming to mind. The woman was coming in. The only complaint she had about her husband was she wanted the dishes washed as soon as they got done eating dinner. And their agreement was she cooked, he washed dishes. You know, his preference was get up from dinner, relax, enjoy the evening before he went to bed. He'd wash the dishes. And he did. It's not like he didn't do them per their agreement. He did. But that was his preference. She sat there in therapy and said, if he really loved me, he would do it the way I want it done. And I said, is there any room in here for if you really loved him, you'd let him do him the way he wants? She left him.
Be glad your husband's doing the dishes.
He's doing the fucking dishes. She left him. That's called emotional fusion. No, this is like, you know, your mother guilts you in because you don't call her every Sunday. And now you even feel neurotic guilt because you don't want to call her every Sunday. So you feel like you're doing something bad, but because you're hers, you know, you're her child, you're supposed to do that. So infused emotional systems is like you belong to me. Therefore, you should think like I think, feel like I feel, want what I want, vote for who I vote for, think, you know, have the same feelings I have. It's like there's no separate self, no separate identity. Now, in relationships, most relationships they get fused like that, where people just lose parts of themselves. And one of the things I've been telling people for years, I've been a marriage therapist forever, is that you should not have to give up anything of value to you to be in a relationship. Why would you get into relationships if it meant giving up things of value to you? Relationships are supposed to add to what you have in your life, not take away by subtraction, because you're not allowed to do that anymore. So a common pattern that I see, and it's happened to me, I get with a woman, and then, you know, I had guy friends I spent time with, you know, maybe go out and play basketball on Monday nights or this, you know, and then all of a sudden, oh, do you have to go out tonight? I don't have to, but yeah, I'm going to go play basketball with my buddies. Oh, don't you want to just stay home? We can watch a show together. Well, I like watching shows with you, but, and then all of a sudden, like, there's this like silent treatment and this guilt because I don't do it. Or another one, you know, you're going to go do this thing and you tell your partner about it and your partner goes, well, I'm not really comfortable with that. I go, okay, I hear you're not comfortable with it, but I'm not doing anything wrong. There's no harm to us, but I don't want you doing that. Okay. It says, go ahead and do it if you want, but just know that, you know, I'm not real happy about that. And basically, I'm going to punish you if you do it. You know, okay. You know, a lot of people, times you go along to get along. All right, I just don't want to deal with that. Another piece that I've run into is almost every woman I've been with. I'm not blaming the women because I invite this, right? I co-create it. And, you know, having is evidence of wanting, right? So another pattern I've seen is that the women in my life will like my guy friends when they meet me and spend time with them. We'll hang out, we'll do stuff. And over time they go, I don't like you hanging out with John. You know, I think he's an alcoholic. I don't think he's a good influence. Or I don't like you hanging out with Jim. You know, he's a womanizer. Or, I don't like, and all of a sudden they have this push against your guy friends. And like, if you say, they're my guy friends, I'm going to hang out with them. Well, just know that I'm not happy about that. Okay. So this can happen, men and women both. Sometimes the control is much more blatant. The woman dresses up to go out with her girlfriend, and her husband beats her because the only reason she could be dressing up is she wants the attention of other men. I mean, it can happen in so many ways. Now, it doesn't just happen in relationships. We can do this with money. Either, having so much money that we're not happy because we're anchored like, Scrooge McDuck to that pile of money, or it can happen with debt, where we get ourselves so in debt we don't have the freedom to do anything. I can also do it by just getting myself so busy with so many projects that I don't have the freedom to do things. People do it with addiction, to where they give up their freedom for the security of alcohol, of drugs, of gambling. People do it with religion all the time. They give up all their freedoms because, well, God says I'm supposed to do it that way. That's what my church says. That's what my faith says. So I even think one of the reasons humans invented religion. I mean, religion's only existed for about 6,000 years. We've existed about 1.5 million. The oldest recorded religions we can find are only about 6,000 years old. Now, did we have all kinds of mysticism and things like before religion? Yeah. But the kind of religions where you had these prophets telling people you have to do this to be pleasing to God, and if you don't, there's eternal punishment. I think in a lot of ways the religions were invented because they gave people that anchor, that tether. Now I don't have to make my own decisions. I don't have to decide what's right or wrong. Someone will tell me what to do it, and I just will do it. These are all the ways that we give up our personal freedom, because freedom is scary because it involves the unknown. Going off, leaving planet Earth involves the unknown. Stepping outside of the spaceship involves the unknown. Getting on that ship to sail to new worlds is unknown. And that scares us. So if you think about it, if the idea of being personally successful, maybe having wealth when you've never had wealth, maybe being in good shape when you've never been in good shape, being attractive when you've never felt attractive, having letters after your name as a degree when you've never thought most people will hang on to their neuroses. They'll hang on to their old way of viewing self and world, and they'll find ways to anchor them down so that they don't fly or blossom, because we don't know what's up there, what's out there. I'll probably say it wrong. It's the Icarus that flew too close to the sun. Mm-hmm. We have morality tales about that. Don't fly too high. Don't get too close to the sun. Don't blow your own horn. Don't get too big for your britches. Don't, who do you think you are? You're so much better than mom and dad now. We get, our society is filled with those messages. Don't get too big. Don't fly too high. Don't soar. And, those are in our psyche.
And so let's say somebody's watching this right now and they realize that this is
let's pretend somebody's watching.
Yeah, let's
pretend one person is watching these two people, having this conversation amongst themselves.
My fear of success won't let me think about more than one person watching this.
Just one. Let's not throw our backs out again, thinking that maybe 500,000, 1 million people will watch us. No, let's not stress ourselves in that way.
Yeah. All right. So. For the one person watching this, so they totally resonate with this.
And we're still just pretending. We're pretending still that there's one person watching.
I would be so grateful if one person watched this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Like, even when I get 100 views on a video, it's like, what, 100 people? Like, that was my entire high school year. Like, I barely knew everyone's name. It was amazing. And 2 hours, it's incredible.
And then you read their comments, and people you don't already know is, how could they say that about me?
I think I got through that. one. That was a rough one for a while, but I actually visualized my husband is amazing at this. He does a lot of coaching, and he's very aligned with, I think, a lot of the stuff that you do. And he gave me a few exercises, and the one that worked was just like visualizing that I was kind of translucent, and the comments just like went through me. And it was fantastic, actually, because cool. I visualized blocking them out. And that felt like I was creating a barrier between myself and the outside world. And I didn't want that. I want to be like almost permeable with the outside world, but letting And honestly, like, who comments negative things on a video? Like, I don't know if I've ever done that. Like, that's a mentally ill thing to do. Like, okay, somebody's
going to comment on that right now. You're saying I'm mentally ill. Who are you to tell me I'm mentally ill? And now the expletives follow. What I love about the comments is people being 100% certain and sure they know every one of your motivations. They know you. They know your agenda. I know people like you. You're this. I'm going, wait a minute. You're not even an ex-wife. How can you claim that you know my motives?
Sometimes they get them completely back to front too. Like,
no, that never happens.
No, not at all. Like, yeah, I was saying at some point, I said,
and at some point, we'll get back to the one viewer watching this.
Yeah. But at some point, I said, like, imagine, when you think about like feminists that, those toxic feminists who hate all men and stuff. Like,
oh, really?
No, I've never heard of them before.
I didn't know about that. I'm not on the internet much. I'm not on social media. I didn't realize women hated men. I thought women thought men were great.
All women everywhere.
Why wouldn't they? We're great.
Well, they found a handful in a tribe in the Amazon that hate men. It's pretty remote, but they exist. Strangely enough, and these women who hate men, I started visualizing them as people who didn't have good father figures in their life. And I imagine myself, okay, let's imagine that I grow up and my father was excellent and I had amazing men around me. But like, let's imagine that I grew up and my father abused me and my brothers were assholes. And then I find my first ex-boyfriend who strangely is like my first boyfriend who strangely is like my father.
Like all the men you've known, yeah.
And my compass points towards home. And so I find a guy who's just like my father and he sexually assaults me. Like, of course I would hate men. Like all the men I've ever met are terrible. And I can't. So it's like, how can I get angry at feminists? Like they're just reflecting what they've known in the world.
We all are. We all are.
I said that one time. Yeah, of course we all are. Exactly. And it's also up to us, not excusing it, like it's up to us to find new models to form more healthy relationships. Like you can't take away.
We're responsible for that. Yeah, we're responsible for owning our occurring world and how we project that out and expect the world to be like what we believe it to be. Because, I don't believe in the law of attraction. And this is me. I don't believe that molecules rearrange themselves to, fulfill my every wish or every thought. But I do believe the world will be as we believe the world to be. Because, if we believe men are like this, we're going to see plenty of men to reinforce that belief. If we believe women are all like this, we'll find plenty of women to support that belief. And we'll be totally oblivious to the exceptions to that rule. That's just how the human mind works. It's a predictive machine. It goes off what it believes to be true and finds ways to predict and keep the world consistent. So, yeah, we're all going to do that. We all project. Every one of us. None of us see reality clearly. And anytime we think we are sure of something with certainty, we're not. Yeah. We can't be.
Not to mention that when you do, it's not only, it is a predictive machine, absolutely. But then there's the secondary thing that happens, I think, where you weed out all the people who would be positive and good for you. Because if you're saying, I hate all men. We're learning a lot today.
Yeah, we are. You're just really opening up, my view of the world. Yeah, and you're right, because again, I go back to that. The ghetto, we're comfortable. The ghetto we know, it may be a ghetto, but we know it. If I know, okay, if I get in a relationship with a woman, she's going to expect me to give up my guy friends. If that's my view of the world, I'll either find women that do that, or I'll take every little sign. Okay, she doesn't want me to go hang out with my guy friends. Yeah, and so we will create the world that feels familiar to us, even if it feels painful, even if it feels toxic or abusive. We will do that as human nature. Again, that's it. It's a thing we tether ourselves to because we want the familiar. The unknown is really scary. And, this kind of keeps bringing us back to, the fear of success and inability to be happy and inability to even kind of create the world we want to live in, because we go, but I don't know what that actually feels like or looks like. My nervous system doesn't doesn't know that kind of reality. And so,
That's-
we will create what feels familiar.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to get to. So let's say somebody does realize
That
they've
one person-
diagnosed
one person
that
is
one
watching
person,
this, right?
the one person they've diagnosed themselves as having a fear of success.
Okay.
What is the next step?
I don't know that there is okay, here's the step that you take. Because you could ask that question to probably 25 different people and they'd give you 25 different answers. So I don't know there's a right answer. For me, like going back to this thing of, I'm getting into much better shape than I've been in for quite some time. When I've been in good shape before, bad things happen. I know that. I intellectually, rationally know there's not a connection. Now, in terms of the relationship dynamics, maybe there was. Maybe me getting into good shape did trigger something in my partners and they responded in a certain way. I don't see that happening with my wife, my present wife. She's a gym rat. She gives me all these subtle hints when I don't go work out. I got a gym in my house. It's right around the corner from my office, right?
Amazing.
So I don't think that will happen. Okay, well, what if somebody dies? Okay, I'm not superstitious enough to believe me getting in good shape makes people die. But my nervous system isn't rational. And it makes it cause and effect, it's not even thinking cause and effect. It just is operant conditioning. This happened like Pavlov's dogs. They didn't realize that every time the bell rang and they got food, they were salivating, but they did, right? It's an operant conditioning. So the best thing I know to do, at least for me starting out, is just be aware, be conscious that my psyche, my unconscious, my nervous system, whatever, is on guard waiting for that bad thing to happen. Again, I'm not superstitious enough to believe I'm going to cause it to happen. Things happen. I mean, it's just that's the cosmos we live in. Things are going to happen. Another thing I've started doing is I've talked about it. I've told other people about this. I've told my nutrition coach about it. My friends know about it. So it's kind of out there in the open, not just a superstition in my head. Another thing that I've also emotionally worked on, because I've done this many other things with many other situations, is I tell myself, if something happens, I'll handle it. No matter what happens, I'll handle it. I've had loved ones die. I've almost died. I've had people cheat on me. I've had pretty much any bad shit that can happen. So, and I've handled it. And I'll handle whatever happens. That to me has been my mantra for 30 plus years. Every stressful, frightening, uncomfortable situation, just reminding myself, no matter what happens, I'll handle it. And because I always have. Everything that's ever happened up till now, I've handled it. I'm still alive and ticking. Another piece that I do morning pages taken from The Artist's Way. So I write three pages every morning. I never know what I'm going to write about, but I just write. And oftentimes, interesting stuff just bubbles up through there that helps me be more aware and more conscious. There's a technique kind of, based on Joe Dispenza, where he has you not only visualize the thing that you desire happening, the outcome where you want to be, but to also do your best to feel the emotions of that being in your life. Okay? Because I think to shift the emotional wiring we have, it does take more than just prefrontal cortex, visual. I think we got to get down to the brainstem, down to the fight, flight, freeze, and all the emotional memory stored up in the amygdala. So I think that's actually a good tool to not only visualize what you desire, but feel the emotions of as if it already exists. And I think that helps. If anything's going to bring up, the crumbliness in our nervous system, feeling the emotions of as if it already exists, that I think will bring up the same, clutter, the same noise of when it actually does happen. But now we can go, oh, wow, watch that. Isn't that interesting? I got off a scale. Now all of a sudden my back hurts. Is there a connection? I don't know. I'm not going to overthink it, but I'm going to be open to the idea that there could be.
I totally agree. I read Think and Grow Rich, which has similar principles to that. It's kind of a more religious book, but
I've
it
tried
may be
listening to it 3 different times. I can't get through it. I know people love it. They love it. I can't get through it. To me, the main takeaway was keep working. don't stop, you know?
Yeah.
I thought, I don't think anybody thinks and gets rich. I think you work hard. Now, hard work is not sufficient. You have to be able to work smart, but because the hardest people work at hardest, the people who work the hardest in the world are often the poorest people in the world as well. So
Yes.
hard work is not sufficient for wealth, but thinking isn't sufficient to get wealthy either.
No,
but we do
not
have
at
to
all.
change our thoughts about money and what it means. I mean, that is essential as well.
I use the principles from Think and Grow Rich to, I think, meet my husband. Like, I would write down, so it says almost the same thing that you said with a little bit more. And so it says, write down your goals in the morning and night. And like, I don't know, write them down 10 times or whatever. I write down the one thing and then say it 10 times out loud. I think out loud is important.
That's
And
cheating. I think if you'd written it 10 times, you would have even gotten a better husband. Than
a
the one you
better
got.
husband. I would have gotten an upgrade.
You self-limited yourself.
I'll let him know. You
Don't
think
tell him I said that.
No, he's
I don't
the
even
best.
know.
I don't think I could find better, honestly. My friend introduced me to him. He said, you have to meet this guy. He doesn't wear shoes. And I hate shoes. And I was like, all right, I gotta meet him. He's perfect. We're perfect. Ah, nice. That's for the fans.
Now, for that one person watching, they just got to see the dirty bottom. I've never held my foot up on a podcast before.
The first time. Yes.
I feel free. I just shed one of those constraints holding me down. I held up a dirty foot on a podcast.
That's going on WikiFeet. Have you ever heard of that website?
WikiFeet?
It's crazy. I don't know. The internet just allows for anyone with a derangement to just post.
I'm going to quit saying, does that exist? Does that really happen?
Does that exist?
I do know that. I do know a lot of stuff happens, but I've never heard of WikiFeet.
It's crazy. It's wild. Anyway,
Where were we? We got one person
wrote,
listening, and they're going, "What the fuck are they talking about?
Is
What,
happening?
are they going to get to something?"
I wrote down every night that I would find a husband who set my soul alight. Like I visualized it, and I mostly, it was the emotions, right? The emotions of finding the person I love and having that beautiful connection. And there was this caveat that it mentions, and it says the hardest part of that is oftentimes when the emotions come up, when you have to feel like you already have it, but there's this extra feeling that says, yeah, but I don't have it. But I don't have it, and I really want it. And that's the gap. And I think the biggest part of visualizing is that you have to figure out how to have faith and remove the gap. And it's tough because we live in this atheistic society, and you have to, I think faith is actually an incredible tool, but if you're too atheist, if you're too scientific, you go, well, faith can't exist. So I'm going to delete all my faith. I can't have faith. It's a bad thing. And I mean, if you're an atheist, the hardest part is figuring out how to utilize this faith pattern that you have in your mind for good, because it's so helpful. It's amazing. But you just, I don't know. Right. I'm not exactly sure how to do it.
Let's take let's run with it, because you've teed it up for me, for our listener. I grew up religious. I grew up fundamental Christian. I have 2 degrees in religion. I was a minister for 8 years. I'm not religious now. I'm not a big fan of man-made religion, but I believe there's a creator of the cosmos, and I believe there is no separate self. I believe all is one. I don't know her, because I don't know, but that's okay. I'm okay with not knowing all that there is to be known. But going back to that thing of us, needing a tether and launching out into the unknown. Something I've been just playing with, just my own personal work and recovery and growth for, just a little bit now, is delving into like projects. Like I launched a men's membership program. We've been live for just over a year. We launched in July 23.
What's it called? How do people sign up?
It's called Dr. Robert Glover's Integration Nation.
Nice.
So that they can sign up. Men can sign up by going to integrationnation.net. Okay.
And if you've ever been part of it, let us know in the comments how it is.
Yeah,
Go on.
you can tell them that, I'm a money-hungry bastard taking advantage of people's problems for my own profit. I've been told that. It didn't stick, though, not at all.
No, good.
It did, some. So I launched this new company. That's taken a lot of time, a lot of people working on it. I haven't made a dime on it in 2 years. I've invested a lot in it, and I believe in it, and I think it's my legacy. I've even toyed with the idea that it's somehow tied into my fate of why I'm here, of what I'm supposed to be doing, and so I liken this, the idea of faith, the piece I've kind of been looking at, and when we talk about faith, I'm not sure it takes a lot of faith, for example, to believe a doctrine that your parents tell you you're supposed to believe. That's not really faith. That's just, okay, my parents said I'm supposed to believe it. It's the only thing I know. Or my preacher says it. Or even the book, that I believe in, whether it's the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, whatever. It says it. So I believe it. There's my faith. I don't know that requires all that much faith, right? But I do believe if we cut the tethers, if we launch into our project of passion, if we go into a relationship and open our heart and commit when we've been hurt multiple times, when we do anything that basically cuts the tether, and now we're spinning up into the cosmos. That's a leap of faith. That's faith. If it doesn't really cost you much or require much of you or doesn't scare you much, where do you need faith, right? Just, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. It's taken faith for me to launch this program because most people at my age are, watching Fox News, drinking beer and playing golf. They're not out investing, building new companies. It was an act of faith on my part. It sounds like, the act of finding your husband and getting all in with him was an act of faith on your part. Breaking your family rules that you've been told all your life are the rules you're supposed to follow, that's an act of faith. Cutting any tether, getting sober is an act of faith. When people get sober, they don't know what's the fuck the other side of not drinking anymore if they've been drinking to deal with everything. That's a leap of faith. So I'm a big fan of those leaps of faith because I think it's what's required to deal with what now after I've cut the tether. What now after, I took the key back, unlock the handcuff and say, I love you, dear, and I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'll be back. Faith that I'll handle whatever happens, and faith that the relationship will grow and handle it as well. So there's a lot of these leaps of faith that I think are essential for us to have our awe, our wonder, our experience of just the of the unknown, maybe of the unspeakable, the unknowable. It takes faith to step out of that spaceship and unhook the tether. And but what other way do we want to live? Do we really want to live addicted to our junk food, our television, our porn on the internet, our toxic relationships, our dysfunctional families, our debt, our bank accounts? I mean, is that really what we want to anchor ourselves to?
And you can just tell, like, if you, I mean, I'll say it from my perspective. At times when I wasn't living correctly, if I look into myself, I mean, I can do it right now. Like, I can look into myself and I can know that things aren't quite right in certain aspects of my life. And like, you'll feel it. It'll feel like dissatisfaction. If you ask yourself, am I happy with my job? And you're not, it'll come up in your body. Like, am I happy with this relationship with this person? Well, I have some anxiety right now when I think of a relationship with a certain friend that I have. Like, oh, that's not right. That's not how it should be. Something needs to happen, right? And like,
and it would take a leap of faith for you to go to your friend and say, "Can we talk?"
Yeah.
You don't know how they're going to take that, where it's going to go. You don't know what the outcome, but it take a leap of faith that says faith in you, faith in them, faith in the power, the history of the relationship, and it could be that it will crumble. I mean, if there wasn't some anxiety that talking about it might destroy it or crumble it, there's no act of faith, right? The faith is you don't have the money in the bank, and you go make the investment anyway. I mean, that could be stupidity as well, but in this case, it's an act of faith to say there's something doesn't feel right about this, and I'm going to go address it and have faith that what needs to happen is going to happen.
So that actually ties into this other point that I was going to make about, you mentioned Jung before, and I really like your program and what you're doing because I think it follows this Jungian ideal. So there's this book called The Problem of the Puer Aeternus, and it was written by Marie von Franz, who is a Jungian scholar, and she's
the problem of
the Puer Aeternus, the eternal boy. It's like I think it's Latin for eternal boy.
Okay.
And she was fantastic, by the way. Jung is very hard to read, and Marie von Franz, like, she worked with him all of her life since she was 18, and she was his like apprentice, and she knew him back to front, and she writes these beautiful books that encapsulate what he says in a really easy to understand way. So I would highly recommend it. But she talks about how men go through different phases in their life. And so you have a boyish phase where you're kind of attached to your mother. And then at some point you grow up and you become attached to a group of men.
Hopefully.
And yeah, hopefully, right? A lot of guys don't get to this point, which is very tough. But
most of the male population nowadays.
It doesn't at all. But when you become attached to this group of men, your job is to learn the ways of men. Your job is to take an apprenticeship on. So like the army, the military is a fantastic way to do this because it gives you a hierarchical structure. You can grow up the ranks. You can measure your competence really well. And then the next part, which I think is somewhat where the leap of faith comes in, depending on where you are in life, but it's you individuate. And so you realize, okay, like you look around at the military, you say, okay, I have these skills, I have these values, but actually this value here doesn't correlate with what the military's value is. I've actually realized in myself, I've grown ahead of that. So I've gained a high rank. I'm very useful to my society. I know that I'm competent in this way. I'm a good leader, but I actually don't believe this anymore. And so maybe you leave the military, maybe you try to change the military, but that's, I think, the prime time for your leap of faith, because you've understood your competence, you understood where your flaws are, and now is the time to journey on your own. And I've got planes, but that's okay.
I know. I kind of like just let the planes go by and let's not worry about them.
Let them go by, yeah.
This podcast is already so unique and original of itself. We might as well just have airplanes. My dog will probably come by and bark some too.
Good, perfect. We like dogs. We accept all dogs on this podcast. And if you don't do that, a lot of the Puer Aeternus is the eternal boy. So the Puer Aeternus he could be 30 years old, although she says that they often die young, but he could be 30 years old and he's attached to his mama in some way. So he's oftentimes he doesn't ever settle down and like, I think Jung says, dig a hole and just keep digging. You can't dig 50 holes, right? You need to dig one hole and keep digging. So like he'll flit from girl to girl all the time. Yeah. He'll travel all over the world and never really do anything with himself. He'll go from job to job. He never like figures out a vocation and just sticks to it. Yeah. And
another term for that is flow boy.
Flow boy, yeah, or Peter Pan. That's Peter Pan, okay, yeah, flow boy. Never heard that one. And so like
that's a West Coast California thing.
Oh yeah. So if you're flow boying, if you're a flow boy right now, like figure it out. I mean, go find some men. And I think that's what your group is doing. Your group is giving these men a group of other men who are pointing upwards, who are pointing in the right direction, who want to improve themselves. And it's allowing them to interface in a way that our current society doesn't do by default.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with everything you just said. And with the, I can't pronounce the French word, I'll go with flow boy. Because I get asked a lot, because I work with men. That's all I do is I work with men. For many years I worked with couples and relationships because that was my training. But after I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, my work just evolved where I work all with men, and I love it. I love working with men. Men can drive me crazy. I mean, we can be pretty dumb. And, one of my mantras is if a man can be confused, he will be. Just assume, any steps you try to take a man through, he'll get confused. Yep. When guys go, I don't understand, I go, no, we're not talking rocket science. Whatever I just shared, I go, I can accept that you're afraid because this involves the leap of faith into the unknown. It's not what you know. It's not the ghetto you know. But what I'm talking about is not confusing, right? Those are different things. But the male mind gets confused when it's afraid, because when it's confused, it doesn't have to make a decision or take any action. So, I get asked a lot about, kind of the state of men. And really what I say is really what you just said, and what this person who, studied with Jung forever said, is that historically, I think throughout probably all human existence, the boys were raised by the women. We had female caregivers. I mean, it's only natural. We're born of a woman, right? And so our first caregiver is going to typically be our mom or other substitutes for mom. And even nowadays, it's mom or a nanny or an au pair, or we go to preschool or grade school. And so I often say that even in most, American schools, you're still going to, it's all women teachers, so to get from second to third grade, not only do you have to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic, but how to please a woman. So boys have been trying to please the women, since the day they're born, because their survival depends on it. Their caregivers are women. If their caregivers don't take care of them, we die, right? Because we're dependent, we're needy completely. So this is normal. I think this is what's happened throughout all of human existence. But up until probably the last 60, 100 years, once a boy reached a certain age, he was taken out of the world of women into the world of men. Whether it meant he went out with dad to pick up eggs from the chicken on the farm, or, bale hay, or cut crop, or hunt, or have an apprenticeship, or back, and go back few thousand years, there was a masculine initiation that followed certain rites, where the boy had to face basically a death experience, whether it went on a vision quest, or I remember when I was a little kid watching a National Geographic show of, in the jungle, the boys, they tied a vine around their ankle. This is before bungee jumping was and stuff. And they had to jump out of the tree with it, just tied around one ankle. Or they strap them down to an anthill. And then after the boy passes, in the movie 300, the little scene where the boy's with his spear in a cave and there's a wild animal there. The men of the tribe would take the boy through some masculine initiation. Robert Bly writes about it in Iron John, and it said the women understood the need. The women would, don't take my boy, don't take him away. And then after they go, how'd I do? Was I convincing? Because the boy has to be torn away from that comfort of the mother, and wanting to own mother, and wanting mommy's approval for everything about him, including his pee-pee, and how, little boys, I don't know if you have kids or not, but, at a certain age, if you have a son, he'll come dancing through the room totally naked, kind of like, mommy, approve of my pee-pee. He'll grab your boob or grab your breast out of the blue, and you're going, what are you doing? Little boys do that because we go through phases of doing that. Maybe we never outgrow those phases. Approve of my pee-pee. Approve of my pee-pee. So what happens, though, is that always in the past, men came and took the boys and initiated them into the scary world of the masculine. Now, the world of the masculine is scary. It is life and death. Men tend to take the jobs that are the most dangerous. Men die on the job, much more than, most women have flooded the workplace now. But most of them aren't out climbing power lines and digging, coal mining.
Thank God. Oh my God.
They're working for Meta and Google, and they've got clean jobs in offices, and they get paid to freeze their eggs, and this is the world that the women come. So men have always, the world of the masculine has always been a dangerous world. Women have their own dangers. Childbirth, you can have it. I don't want it.
I love in Australia, which is where I live, there's this amazing phenomenon that happens on construction sites. So construction sites, I think, made some sort of law where women have to have a certain amount of jobs. And so now every single time I pass a construction site, there are these beautiful women, like they're like 10% less beautiful than like a model, and they're holding the stop signs. And so obviously the construction workers have just been like, all right, well, we have to hire women. Let's hire the hottest possible women.
And let them hold a sign.
Let them hold a sign and wait for us to get there. And then they'll go, oh, hi, John, how are you? Yeah. That's all they do all day. It's amazing.
Yeah, but whenever my wife sees some job like that, she goes, I want that job, but but she said, I want it in chanclas, which are flip-flops, and I want it in the rain. Whatever that job is, but I want to be out in the rain, and I want to be wearing flip-flops, sandals. So the world of the masculine is scary. But as you said, the world of the masculine is also measurable and predictable. The world of the boy trying to live into the world of the feminine and trying to please the feminine, you can't do it. It's like saying, how do I please the weather? Well, and so boys, these little, the flow boys and all, they quit trying, to please the women because they learn they can't, but they never do go get a structure and a discipline. And so, they still want the approval of mommy, approve of my pee-pee, all that kind of stuff. But in the world of masculine, say in a sports analogy, if you've hit a home run, if you've scored a touchdown, if you've made a basket, if you had the best time. That's the world of the masculine, that where you stand, you know what you've accomplished, what your status is. And that is actually comforting for men to know, I've reached this level. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm a sergeant in the military. I've made my first $1 million. I bought my first BMW. Whatever, it can be measured. And I'm not saying one's good or bad or whatever, but when boys are never taken into that world of, okay, you can be masterful, you can accomplish, you can have an internalized sense of esteem that you've done well. The boy will never get that in the world of the feminine, trying to please mommy, trying to please the women of the world. And so he'll either just keep trying to his own detriment, or he just quits trying whatsoever, but never gets initiated over here. And so most of the men I work with, most of the men I know in this world, I say they're hanging out in the nursery, where everything gets pushed to them, basically, like a bottle stuck in their mouth. They can just be on their computer, on their smartphone. Their porn gets pushed to them. Their Netflix gets pushed to them. Their YouTube gets pushed to them. They can eat their junk food. They can smoke their pot. They can drink their alcohol. Everything just gets pushed. There's nothing required of them, but men are not happy until something's required of us. We know what the standard is, right? And once we've crossed that standard, we have a sense of accomplishment. Okay. And now we believe in ourselves, and we know that we can repeat that. We'll never get that in the world of the feminine. That's why most men quit trying. And I think when men quit trying, that's the crisis we see with so many men nowadays, is that they're lonely, they're isolated, they're depressed, they're killing themselves, they're dying premature deaths because they never got initiated from the world of the feminine into the world of the masculine. And I put that on us men. We men need to be doing a better job at that. And I'm trying to be one of those voices and doing, some of that. And there's a lot of other good men out there doing that as well. Not just for just young boys, but boys in their 30s, 40s, 50s who never got this initiation either.
Do you have an initiation ceremony in your group?
We don't have we don't have an initiation ceremony per se, but we do things that are initiatory. That's the right word. Like, and believe it or not, men will balk at some of the most rudimentary things. Like one thing we do is when we have a Zoom call, we have over 55 Zoom calls a month that guys can get on.
Wow.
So yeah, you can't get on all of them because they're all times of day and night. So, and what we ask them to do is when they come on Zoom, to change their Zoom name to their first name, their last initial, and their city. Mm-hmm. They balk. They don't do it. They won't even come on camera, right? Another thing that we do, and this isn't even required, but we model it and suggest it, is when we introduce ourselves, say your first name and son of. I'm Robert, son of the late Robert. Okay, I introduce my, and I got that out of Mankind Project. They do something like that in Mankind Project. It links us to our masculine heritage, for good or for bad, and like the Buddhists say, any work we do, we're healing the karma 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. So we ask the men to say, and we don't require it even. And we've had guys just get pissed off and quit. I'm not going to say my father's name. He was an asshole. Nobody can make me. You don't have to. Say you're son of the cosmos. Say you're the son of some mentor that you had. But be the son of somebody, right? And so men will reject it. They'll reject. That's not even a painful initiation, other than I know it does cause some men pain to say their father's name. And, which is part of the reason we do it. I want us to feel the discomfort if we did not have a good relationship with our father, because if we don't heal that wound, we won't have a good relationship with other men, and we won't have a good relationship with our own masculine self. And of course, our fathers were imperfect. They all were. No one man could have been a tribe of initiated men to bring us into masculine adulthood. Our fathers were inherently going to let us down. Okay? So men will resist against that. Now, one of the things that we do that I love is at the end of every one of our calls, we'll put on music and we'll dance on Zoom. Right, so like today, and when we have a guest speaker like we did today, I mentioned we had Dr. Orion Taraban, and I asked our guest speakers to pick a song, and he picked "Get Lucky" by Def. Whatever.
Oh yeah.
Up all night to get lucky.
Yeah.
And he even said later, or no, he said before we started, he said, I was kind of anxious that we, I had to give a song, and you said we'll dance on Zoom. And he said, I was kind of anxious because I'm not a very good dancer. And what we call it good men dancing badly, because our mantra is good men doing better. So, it's kind of like, let's not give a fuck. Let's dance like nobody fucking cares. And it's an initiation. And we've had men, they'll drop off the call before the dance starts. And okay, maybe they're in a Starbucks, maybe in their car, maybe, whatever, But, we've had guys say, I'm not going to join if I have to. I said, don't dance. Don't do it. But you know what? We had one intake call, and the guy asked about, the dance. And he said, I don't know if I want, I'm uncomfortable. Or do I have to do it? And I go, no. But the fact that you're uncomfortable is why we ask you to do it. Masculine initiation is getting comfortable, feeling uncomfortable. And I said, but you don't have to do it. And at the end of that call, he was up dancing. And I thought, I respect the hell out of that. If you think about it, dancing, what's the big deal? We're just moving our body around and, on Zoom. But for many men, it creates anxiety.
Yeah.
Great. So that's one of the reasons we do it, because it feels good. And after it got done and our guest speaker, we got in, I really was anxious about doing that. And he goes, but man, that sure felt good to just get up and feel some joy and dance around and move. And I go, it does. It feels good.
Yeah.
And but that goes back to that thing about most of us aren't used to feeling good or being happy or having joy either. So we do have some initiations, but I've also found, I know there are other men's membership programs that have much more stringent initiations. You can go join some and, guys punch you in the face and stuff like that. And they probably all have value. I think all you got to do is get a little bit out of your comfort zone in the presence of other men, and that's all it takes. I don't think you have to be afraid you're going to die, but for some men, dancing, it probably feels like I'm going to die, if I get up and dance in front of other people. Probably some men feel that way. So yeah, we do try to provide various forms of initiation and preach, the whole getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And like one of my kind of main teaching points lately has been, I believe we're all here to get our heart broken. I think that's why we're here having this existence, because anything that's good enough to break our heart, we wouldn't want it to have missed, right? So that means we're here to experience the good stuff. We're here to experience, the love of a good man, the love of good friends, the love of, an amazing pet. We're here to experience love. That's where we take our biggest risks. That's where we have to face our deepest fear. That's where we let go of the tether and say, I'm diving in. I don't know where this is going to take me. But most of us walk through life, with our armor up, our protective armor. I don't want to get hurt again. We got our offensive weaponry, kind of like the song Hallelujah. All I learned from love was to shoot someone who outdrew you. What a line. That's all I learned from love was how to, outdraw, shoot someone who outdrew me. Shoot them before they shoot you. That's our mantra of love. So I think that's powerful initiation, to open and be vulnerable and risk letting another human being love you, man, woman, to risk letting your dog love you, to love your dog. Dr. David Snarch wrote a book called Passionate Marriage. Amazing book. Talks about fusion, differentiation. One of the few books out there that really addresses it well. And he said, in every relationship, somebody's going to get left. And I remember when I read that 20 some years ago, I thought, that's the most liberating thing I've ever read. A lot of people read, oh no, that's terrible. But think about it. Once you know that in every relationship, somebody's going to get left, whether it's somebody walking out the door or somebody dying or your pet dying or your favorite car, you finally got to buy a new car, your refrigerator dying, whatever. In every relationship, something is going to get left. I mean, it's the impermanence of Buddhism. And once we know that this too will pass, everything comes and goes, manifest, unmanifest, then we can go all in with whatever's happening because we know it's going to end for us or for them or both. So let's go all in. Let's not do it halfway. Let's not just kind of tightrope. All right, I'll keep some of my armor on, and I'll kind of keep my weapon at my side in case I need it. Fuck, let's drop the armor. Let's drop the weapons and say, I'm wide open. I'm wide open.
Yep.
And that's a leap of faith.
And I think from the woman's side here, there's this really important thing to do. And I've just heard a lot of men talk about it. And it's that when your man drops his armor and is just wide open with you and tells you, you know, something deep and, or just like tells you his emotions for the first time, your job is to be what's called a container. And so what I mean by container is, for me, it involves a lot of shutting my intellectual brain off. And so I'm not like nitpicking at him. I'm not like, well, why would you say that? Because this doesn't even make sense, you know.
Why would you feel that way?
Yeah, why would you feel that way? Like, oh, you know, that's a stupid thing to feel. Like, or even just like, or like bringing it to me, right? Like, oh, that reminds me of this time that I blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not about me right now. It's like the container is, oh, like, thank you for sharing that. And like, how does that make you feel? Like you can kind of lead him down a path of like going a little more into emotions if he wants, being very gentle. Like, oh, that, you know, if you said that and I felt angry because what happened to you? Like, do you feel angry? You know, whatever it is. And just like being very gentle. And then I think for me, it's easy if I have a very clear opening and closing of the container. And then I can talk about myself or I can do whatever. And then after that, the most important part is after that, you never, ever use it against him. Ever.
People
in your
do
life.
That?
Like,
that album just got teed up. I couldn't resist. People do that?
Yeah. And I wonder, I have this question for you of how can us women help facilitate growth in our men? Like, how can we help our men walk down this path?
Okay. That is a good question because there's not a simple, easy answer for a few things. I don't think on this chat you haven't mentioned dominance and submission, but you said something about submission in an email that you sent me earlier, and we haven't gone there.
Yeah.
But if we just think in terms of a polarity, like masculine and feminine polarity, and masculine is the doer part of ourselves, the feminine is the done to part of ourselves. And we all have masculine and feminine polarity. We all have our yin and yang. I heard David Data say one time, if a woman tells a man what to do and he does it, she's just polarized him into his feminine because she's taking the masculine pole. And, you know, even if you get, you know, your man this really good book, you get your man No More Mr. Nice Guy, you think he might benefit from reading it. It is such a thin line of, are you polarizing him into his feminine? Because if he does it to please you, he's now submitting. He's in his feminine. The feminine submits. And so it is tough. I mean, because women will ask me this kind of question. They go, my husband's a nice guy. I love him to death, but he's a nice guy. He needs your book. He needs his work. What do I do? And I go, you know, really about all you can do is buy the book, leave it on his nightstand. Because almost anything more than that, you're polarizing from the dominant masculine place. And if he does it to please you, he's in his feminine, and you don't want him pleasing you from his feminine. Now, is his feminine a value part of who he is? Yeah. But if he's a nice guy, he's probably in his feminine a lot seeking external validation, seeking your approval, not wanting to upset you, not wanting to rock the boat. And you're coming home and he's going, what do you want to do tonight? What do you want to eat? And you're going, fucking make a decision, please. Lead me. I've been making decisions all day long. I'm in my masculine all day. Let me, not have to come home and be my masculine with you in our relationship. Now, the whole masculine feminine thing is something that the partners can move in and out of. If they're both comfortable with both sides. It's not like he's the man, he should be masculine. You're the woman, you should be feminine. We have both sides, right? And I know my wife's a strong woman. She can get a lot of shit done. She's my role model for a lot of and I'm feminine. I'm sensitive. I like to be liked. Treat me well. Blah blah blah. So that's good. It's great. But when you were talking, I shared this, and I hadn't shared this for a while. But I shared it with somebody else I was talking to earlier today. When I was a marriage therapist, I had a lot of women. Not a lot, but this would happen regularly enough, for the woman to say, I just don't know my husband. I don't know what's going on inside him. I don't know what he feels. I don't know what he thinks. He never opens up. He never reveals himself. And okay, yeah, I tell women that's pretty common. I hear that a lot from women. And then at some point, they're both sitting in my office next to each other on a couch, and we've been talking about something. And my job's to kind of pay attention to what's going on. And I'll notice the guy's eyes are misting up. He's getting teary. And the woman will just be sitting there like just yakking away, talking about this thing, going on. And he's sitting there, something came up, he's teary-eyed, and I'll stop her. And I'll say, look at your husband's eyes. And she'll kind of look at him and probably get kind of uncomfortable because she's going, what? What am I supposed to do? What? And I'll go, you say your husband doesn't ever let you see what he's feeling. And I said, he's having feelings sitting, 6 inches from you, and you're oblivious. You're oblivious to the feelings. So I don't know, from my personal experience and professional experience, I don't know that a man's female partner is the best person to help him learn to work with feelings and feel his feelings and feel safe with them. I think that comes best with other men, because he'll never feel like you feel. The female container and the male container, they do feel very differently. We men, we split. We go into our head and we go into our balls, into our dick. That's kind of how we do our feeling. The female tends to feel it throughout the entirety of your being when you have a feeling. And I'm making a generalization, but that kind of seems how it plays out. And, I went through the process of learning to have feelings when I was in my second marriage, when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy. And my wife, bless her heart, would just try to get me to have feelings, but she tried to get me to feel like she felt. I mean, she felt all kinds of stuff. She would cry after an orgasm, and she'd go, how come you never cry after orgasm? I go, I never thought about it. Why would I cry? But for her, it was the most natural thing to weep, after, maybe I was that good. I don't know. But, she would just cry. And I just, I don't know. So we're different. And I think if men can learn to have their feelings, and again, men have to learn to trust men. Because, we got our father wounds. If you women think you got issues with men not being trustworthy, guys come in. They got bullied. They got their own father wound. They've never felt like they measured up to other men. And so once men learn to trust men, and usually how that happens is by we just basically, we have to share our vulnerabilities and our shame and our fears and anxieties with each other. And then we go, oh, we're all a lot alike. Oh, I don't judge you and you're not judging me. Okay, maybe this is normal. But if men can learn to do their feeling work with men, I think they can more powerfully bring that to their female partner to where it doesn't feel burdening to their female partner. Like you don't have to be their therapist, their emotional tampon or whatever to, help them work through their feelings. He's already done that work. And in fact, I often tell men, probably your partner should not be the first person you go reveal your deepest stuff to. Go do that with your guy friends. Work it out. Work through the emotional part of it. And from there, you can then probably go give the details of it to your partner. And she doesn't have to take that on or know what to do with it. You've done the work with it. And I think women find that easier to work with, feel safer. You don't have to be, so much of the container. But you know what's going on inside him, right? And he's got his tribe, his posse, his team to help him do the work. And I just found in general that works better than him saving that rare time that he has a feeling and brings it to his wife or girlfriend, and maybe you don't quite know what to do with it, and he doesn't know quite what to do with it either.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because oftentimes the first thing that comes out is kind of raw and unfiltered. Like he might have this sense of like, oh, I hate my girlfriend. And then maybe he talks to his buddies about it. And then he goes, oh, actually, I hate her because she did her hairstyle like my mom and I hate my mom, you know, like
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anything. And it's like, oh, especially if this is maybe kind of new to you, or if it's really extreme, like go filter it through somebody else first, go talk it out with someone else, and then come back to her if you still have a problem. You know, don't do your hair that way. Like, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Now, I want to come back to this thing you said earlier about your wife doesn't want you, not your wife, but like, you know, your hypothetical wife doesn't want you going out.
The hypothetical wife I might have, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't want you to go hang out with your buddies, right? Yeah. And this makes a lot of sense to me in the context of this conversation, because it seems like in a lot of marriages or partnerships that I've seen, like 60% of the issues are just down to poor communication, maybe 90%. Like, maybe. And it just depends on the issue, right? But like, let's say that you don't like your husband going out with his buddy because he's a bad influence. What does that actually mean? Like, it's possible that your husband is going out with his buddies and he's coming home blind drunk. And what you actually don't like is that he's coming home blind drunk. It's actually, if he was hanging out with his...
He goes out with them, they come home drunk. Yeah.
Exactly. And so you're trying to tell him, don't go out with that guy. But instead you could say, hey, it really makes me feel unsafe when you come back home blind drunk, because you're not here to defend the house, or
you might get in an accident, you might get arrested, you might get a DUI, anything.
Or I feel scared that you're going to get a DUI. I feel scared that you're going to get into an accident, or I feel scared of you because when you come home you're unpredictable. Like, I think
it would be lovely if we could all just tell our partner our fear without projecting on that they're causing our fear. They're the cause, and that they have to be different so we don't have this fear. But you're right. Most of us are not good at that. We all assume whatever we're feeling must be caused by them, right? Mm-hmm. And I have to get them to quit doing what they're doing so I can quit feeling what I'm feeling. And yeah, most of us, where did we learn to communicate this kind of stuff? From mom, dad? Did they do it well? Most of us didn't see good role models of this being done. And when we're having feelings, right? When we're feeling scared, when we're afraid of getting abandoned, when we're afraid of being cheated on, when, if every guy you've ever met, I'll take my wife's situation. She grew up here in Mexico. It's macho culture. In macho culture, I've come to understand, and I see it, a couple of things happen. A lot of things happen. Mothers raise their sons to be like Jesus, the sacred Jesus. The boys can do no wrong. The sisters have to make their bed for the boys, have to wait on them hand and feet. So the mothers raise the sons to believe that women are here to serve them, right? And so that's what the boys grew up in. Women are here to, take care of me, serve me. And they think that whatever money they make is theirs. Why should I give that to my wife and kids, or her kids? This is my money. It's for beer. It's for, So there is this very much thing. I've asked my wife, have you ever known in your life a man who was faithful? And honestly, she says no. She's never known a man who was faithful. That's part of the culture. Father, left the family for another woman. Every one of her brothers, multiple philanderers, every boyfriend she's had, every gay man she's ever known, every man she's ever known, are all philanderers. It's just part of the culture. Another part of the culture, and this is a little bit more subtle and you have to be able to see it and watch it, is that the women all compete with each other to get other men's attention, men that have wives and girlfriends. So if I'm out with my wife, and almost any time if we're in a restaurant where there's a hostess, or most of the waiters here are male, but occasionally female waitress, the women will do whatever they can to get my attention. Just started going to my wife's gym the other day. And, I've been to her gym twice. And there's some woman there, she goes, this woman's never even come around me or done anything, but you're in the gym, and next thing you know, everywhere you go, she's bending over, doing deadlifts, stretching her hamstrings right in front of your face. I just don't like that. And, there's a part of me that says, oh, you're projecting. Oh, I'm 68 years old. This woman's probably all of 25. Blah, 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 blah. But she's right. The woman is sticking her butt in my face whenever she can, because that's part of the culture, that the women will try to get another woman's man. And I'm using that in kind of an ownership model. I get that. But, he's in a relationship with this other woman, and the women, it's sport here. Can I get that man to at least pay attention to me, watch me as I walk by? I give him a cleavage shot when I bend over, the table to bring the food. Or can I get him to sleep with me? And, since my wife's view of men is, if a woman spreads her legs, what man would say no to that? It's just this cultural thing. So, that is all the stuff that she carries with her. Now, it'd be great if she could just explain all that just like I explained it.
Yeah.
She can't. She can't. That woman is trying to get your attention. What woman? You were looking at her butt. What butt? You're on your phone. You're smiling when you're sending a message. You must have a girlfriend. Who are those hearts? That's my guy friends, actually. We send each other a lot of hearts.
Now the fiery Latina personality makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, if every man you've ever known has been unfaithful, and if every girlfriend and sister you've ever had has hit on your boyfriend or husband and or slept with them, and she has a few of those stories as well, of friends and sisters sleeping with her boyfriends. So, yeah, it's just, now, wouldn't it be great if we could just explain that all to our partner rather than having our triggers? I'm going out. Well, in her mind, when men go out, they go out to drink with their buddies and pick up putas. Putas is a derogatory term for a woman who has sex. Every language has those words. Funny how that is. We say, well, women don't want sex. They don't care about sex. They don't. Now, why have we worked so hard to repress their sex drive if they don't like sex? So, and slut shaming is probably one of the most endearing ways we do. Enduring ways, probably better than endearing. Not the right word. Okay. So, but we've all got we've all got baggage, right? And it'd be great if we could just present that baggage to our partners without making it about them. But of course, we don't. But the good news is, if we're conscious, I've been preaching this for years, conscious relationships are powerful personal growth machines. Our partners are going to trigger our baggage one way or another. That's why we get them. I think it was Pia Melody said, we'll be attracted to people who have some of the worst traits of both of our parents. We've got a toolkit that we've got tools in it that we learn from. How do I get along with dad? How do I get along with mom? How do I make this happen? And now we get with our partners. Well, I've got my toolkit. That tool doesn't work on them. Well, I need to find somebody who the tool works on, because they're going to co-create what feels familiar. We all tend to co-create familiar relationship dynamics. It's very unconscious. So this is where, yeah, if we can get conscious, and usually takes some help. If we could do it on our own, we'd probably do it on our own. Einstein said something like, the same thinking that got us into the problem we're in is not going to get us out of the problem. So it is, I believe in relationship therapy. I'm a relationship therapist by training. I believe in it. If I was left to my own to figure out all my relationship issues, oh man, I bumble enough as it is through them. And if I had to figure it out, no, I go get help. I get outside resources to help give me a different perspective and give me different tools so I can work with my partner. So like, for example, used to be when my wife got jealous, I'd get really upset, or first of all, I'd try to talk her down and through and vindicate myself. I wonder, I love vindicating myself. I didn't do that. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. And then if that didn't work, I'd get mad at her. I'd say hurtful things, and, I'd tell her brain was broken and she obsesses about putas, and that didn't work. For some reason, that didn't get her over obsessing about putas. And so I had to learn to soothe myself and calm myself and not do the whole vindication of myself, and just listen better and hear her fear and her anxiety. So actually this time, she's now talked about the woman at the gym 3 times. And each time she brought her up, she said, I just got to say this to get it out of my head, because I don't want it to be in my head. And she said it very respectfully, didn't accuse me of anything. Not too much anyway. And didn't make it my fault too much. And I just listened and told her how much I loved her and respected her, and she's all that I want. And yeah, you're right. That woman does really seem to want my attention. Just validated her experience. I didn't do that very well in years past, and she didn't do very well telling me about it. But we've come a long way. We both love each other, and we both want each other to be okay. And so that's taken work, and it's been a lot of personal growth. It's helped me clear out a lot of my old baggage. It's helped her clear out a lot of her old baggage. Will we spend the rest of our lives and still not be done cleaning out the baggage? Yeah, of course. But that love and that mutual respect and that caring goes a long way to say, I wish my partner would quit doing this, but I love them enough to work on my reaction to it. And even as I got, further along in it, I wish I could get her to quit being jealous. I wish I could get her to quit. But the truth is, like she even tells me, she says, when I get jealous, I also get kind of horny. It turns me on. And jealousy is an aphrodisiac. It does make you want to go possess this thing you feel a threat, right? So there's some evolutionary, role to it. And so why would I want to take that away from the equation? I'm stupid, but maybe not that stupid. If her feeling jealous actually lights a fire inside of her towards me, but her fire towards me goes pretty much all the time anyway. So, I don't have to do anything about that. But why would I make it go away? Why not let her be jealous and me find a different way of dealing with her jealousy? She always gets over it. I mean, it's never gone on forever. It comes, it goes, it passes. So, here I'm at 68 in my third marriage and still growing and still learning. Now, go ahead. And I've got a magic piece that has helped me a lot.
Oh, please go.
All right. My magic. We love magic. One of the things that I've found from just working with lots and lots of couples and in my own relationship struggles is that often what happens, the fights that I see, and I'll kind of make this kind of a gender-based discussion, but it doesn't have to be, is that often let's just say the more feminine partner, the feminine identified partner in the relationship makes an emotional statement. The more masculine identified partner in the relationship hears it as a factual statement. You never say you love me. Yeah, I do. I just said it this morning. Now, as a feminine partner, do you feel heard? Do you feel loved? Do you feel validated? No. The masculine identified partner is going, she's batshit crazy. I'll never figure out. Why does she say that? So a lot of these arguments we're mixing emotion and fact, oil and water, and not distinguishing what is what. And I found that if I can help men, for example, because mainly who I work with, listen to the underlying emotional statements. Like when my wife's talking about this woman at the gym, there's emotion behind it, right? Now, if I hear it as factual, have I done anything wrong? No. Have I actually avoided that woman? Yes. Have I gone and worked out at other parts of the gym? Yeah. Have I given her any of my attention? No. I've not done anything wrong. So from a factual point of view, I got nothing to even defend myself but if I start arguing those facts that she's not going to feel heard. And she's going to have to stick with this thing because she's got strong emotion about it. Her emotion has not been resolved. And so by me hearing her validating, yeah, that woman does seem to want my attention. You're right about that. And you know how much I love you and how much I respect you. And I'm not going to give her my attention. And I can understand why you'd feel that way, that, this woman's a threat. So if I can actually hear the emotion behind it and even come close to verbalizing the emotion, like I get it, it makes a difference. And a story I tell to illustrate it. This is a few years ago. I was leading a workshop at a hotel here in town that I used to lead my workshops there. Kind of a boutique hotel, and I used to live near it, so I knew all the people who worked there. And so my wife was actually going out of town that weekend. She was going to Guadalajara, where she's from, and took the bus to Guadalajara. And my tech assistant, who lives in Veracruz, Mexico, came here to Puerto Vallarta, and he and I were driving over to the hotel the Friday afternoon, stopped at a Starbucks, went, and then to start to go do the workshops. It was going to be Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. My assistant was going to stay in the hotel. I was coming home, sleeping in my home Saturday, Sunday night. 5 minutes, I told my wife, okay, we stopped at Starbucks, we're at the hotel, now we're about to get started. 5 minutes before the workshop's supposed to start, she sends me a message. She says, you haven't said I love you all day. And I could tell, it triggers my anxiety. I know it wasn't true, and I thought, oh, she's not feeling loved by me right now. She's not. I always boil it down. My wife's saying something that makes no sense to me factually. I try to boil it down. My woman's either not feeling sufficiently loved by me right now, not feeling sufficiently connected to me right now, or not feeling sufficiently safe with me right now. And is there anything I can do about any of those three things? Maybe, maybe not, but maybe if I can, I will. So I send her some message back. Said, I love you so much. I'm so glad you're my wife. I didn't argue the facts. I said, I love you, glad you're my, I'm about to start. I'll message you later on. All right, that night, I got back to my house Friday night, and I just go through WhatsApp. That day, that very day, I told her 5 times, I love you. I took screenshots of each one of them for myself, just for me. My sense. Okay. And then, the weekend unfolds. I get done with my workshop Sunday night. She comes home later Sunday night. Everything gets settled. We get into bed. We snuggle up. And she snuggles up to me. She says, I owe you an apology. I said, oh, really? I thought that's kind of a novel thing for me to hear that from a woman, but okay. Tell me your apology. She says, I was riding home on the bus, 5-hour bus ride. She says, I'm just scrolling through my phone. And she says, when I said you haven't said you love me all day? I said, I remember. And she said, I was wrong. She said, you told me 4 times that you loved me. Oh. I said, actually it was 5. I have the screenshots. And we could laugh about it, right? Well, just like that. We had a good laugh about it because she owned that I'd said it 4 times. And I took screenshots. I know it was 5. So I heard the emotion of it rather than the facts. The facts were wrong. I'd said I loved her 5 times that day. But if I'd argued that, that would not have taken us anywhere. And that argument might have gone on all weekend long, continued long after she got back into town. And so hearing the emotional statement, and men will go, well, wait a minute, how do I know it's an emotional statement? I go, oh, easy. 2 things will happen. 1, it'll sound batshit crazy to you. And 2, you're going to want to argue it. That's how you know it was an emotional statement. Simple as that.
Being in the masculine, to me, the image that was conjured up was being a stone in the middle of a flowing river. You're not going with every time the current gets faster. You're not going with that. You're not saying, oh, well, I better go with this current. I better move with it and flow with it. That's not your job. Your job is to be stable and consistent and just kind of let it pass through you and work with it in that way.
My second wife, she used to tell me things like, I'm your Bermuda Triangle and you're my Rock of Gibraltar. She'd say things like, I'm just a little girl making noise. When I get all upset, you get all upset. She goes, I don't feel safe. She goes, if I don't know you can stand up to me, how can I know you'll stand up for me? And she was accurate about those things, is how you can take care of yourself in so many ways. But don't you want to know that your male partner is solid, is strong, is consistent? Those are masculine terms. Whether we go back into the yin and yang, the yang of it, thousands of years of this thing. And it's not that you're stoic, not that we don't care, not that we don't pay attention, but I don't know, as a guy, the masculine part of me, like I said, we all have feminine, masculine. That masculine part of me kind of liked that I stood strong. And I just saw that she needed to be told she was loved. And I held my ground. Not like in a defending myself, but I was grounded. And that felt good, right? That's the masculine bliss, is a job well done. The feminine bliss is being deeply penetrated by a masculine person who knows how to do their job well. That's the feminine bliss. And again, we all get various doses of masculine, feminine bliss. I found most men really, really like that masculine bliss of doing a job well done. And most women I've worked with really kind of like feeling well done.
So I have this question in my mind, and it's...
Well, let's get it out of your mind. Let's get
Great.
It out for our listener.
For our listener, perfect. So there's this phenomenon that I've seen in more, I guess, traditional feminine circles, and it's that the women who... I brought this up before, it might be in the beginning of the podcast, it might not be, but the women who really love to receive the advice of be submissive are oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes women who are already being trodden on, maybe even abused, like emotionally manipulated, and being more submissive is actually just oftentimes letting an abuser kind of steamroll you, right? And that wasn't the case for me. I think I was too in my masculine and I needed to be more my feminine. So I go and tell everyone the good word, but actually a lot of people probably don't need that advice, or they needed the advice in a different way. So what I'm wondering is, do you have any advice for how a woman can discern, maybe even before a relationship, whether this guy is in his healthy masculine or whether he's kind of too domineering, too over the top, and kind of a risk?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because those are you and I both know kind of modern culture, even terms, dominant, submission, those are risky terms.
Yeah.
But only since one person's watching this, we probably won't get canceled by bringing them up. I would never tell anybody be submissive. Now, and you're right, context is everything. Guys will sometimes say, Robert, you contradicted yourself. I heard you on this podcast say this thing, on this podcast you said that thing. And I go, what was the context? Well, in this podcast, it was this context, and okay. I tell guys, read a book. Here's a good book to read. I tell other men, stop reading books. You've read enough. You have all the information you need to make, informed decisions and take powerful action. So everything is context. And you're right. You wouldn't tell anybody, man or woman, who's been abused by others, be more submissive. I mean, no, you wouldn't do that. And submission is a choice. But it's got to be an informed choice based on something that feels good. When I talk about masculine and feminine, I break it down really simply, probably way too simple. But I say the masculine does. Masculine penetrates. Feminine is done too, is penetrated. Now, at times, that masculine penetration of the feminine is blissful. It just is bliss beyond words. When a conscious, let's just say men and women, just keep it simple. Let's say, your male masculine partner brings all of his consciousness, his open heart, his attentiveness, the depth of his sexuality, his dark sexuality, just his rock in the river strength to you, and you open to that because it feels so safe and just so nurturing and just so and the more you open, the deeper he can penetrate you. This isn't just physical, literal, it's consciousness, presence, energetic. The more he penetrates you and the more you trust that, the more you open. That's an effect that is beyond words, right? Ineffable, is that the right word? There's just no words to describe it, okay? That requires submission. That requires opening. That requires letting go, okay? Now, but that's got to be your choice, because it feels good to you. Now, the feminine and being done to, throughout anybody that's ever been in their feminine, their feminine body much, has been done to in ways that feel traumatic, that feel abusive. And that is why I think so many women do have a hard time opening. With this model, let's say, I say keep it male, female for now, the deepest desire of a woman would be to be loved deeply. And when I talk with men and women in groups, I'll say the masculine wants to love, the feminine wants to be loved. Masculine is source of love, feminine is the consumer, the seeker of love. And I'll ask men and women, would you rather love or be loved? If what inspires you the most? What energizes you the most? And the women always go, I want to be loved. I want to be loved. And the men, much more quietly, usually after the talk I give, go, Robert, you're right. I just want to love. But the women will all go, I want to be loved. And then they'll start telling me stories. Well, I have this great guy in my life, but, I just don't let him in. I just don't let him. And the women, but it makes sense. And like I said, we're here to get our heart broken. We really don't want to get our hearts broken. And if every time you've opened in the past, you got hurt, it was rough, you got poked, and, you got, just what was not treated well in whatever way, got lied to, got sexually violated, got cheated on, whenever you opened, you got hurt. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you open and submit. But it also now makes you guarded and robs you of the greatest bliss that you could experience because you're walking around, again, with the armor on and the weaponry. And again, we all do that in some form or another. So, yes, you do have to test the masculine partner in your life of, are they safe? Are they going to hurt you? Yes, I guarantee it. Most men are amazingly clumsy lovers, and I mean that in every manifestation of the term clumsy lover. Right? Or we're verbally clumsy, we're emotionally clumsy, we're sexually clumsy. Women are built to be sexual Ferraris. You're fine-tuned race cars. Your bodies are pleasure palaces. You have parts of your body that exist for no other reason than pleasure. Sex is so nuanced and complex and amazing for you. For a man, your sexual Ferrari, we guys are sexual mopeds. We think great sex is find a warm hole, stick our dick in it, and come. We say, that was good sex. Was that good for you, babe? So if that's what you've experienced, both, literally and emotionally, figuratively, why would you open to that? Why would you submit to that? So yes, you do have to find out, is a man safe for you to open to? You do have to test that. And then you test it in many different ways, just going slow enough to get to know. I mean, don't just open to him automatically because that desire wants to have him and feel him and, feel him in you and, have him take you those places. You do have to go kind of slow with that, not in the typical, good girls don't, put it off. I'm not saying don't feel the sexual desire. Feel it. If you feel it, test it. Find out, is this guy safe? But it does take some time to feel that. So don't open all at once. I think you need to open in stages. So people will ask me, how do you learn to trust? Like, how do you learn if a friend is trustworthy, a partner, a therapist? And there's a simple stair-step method where you just share a little bit, check. Share a little bit, check. How do they handle whatever you've opened, whatever you've revealed, whatever you've shared? Do they hear it? Do they listen? Do they listen well? Are they respectful? Do they reciprocate and share in kind? Because that's where a lot of the safety comes from, is that reciprocation of opening, right? You open, they open. You share, they share. But if you open and share and they just go, mm-hmm, well, why would you open and share more? That doesn't feel good. So that's one way to test it. Do they use it against you? Do they bring it up? Yeah, that happens. Do they gossip about you? Do they, stab you in the back with it? And again, we're all human, we're all flawed, we're all imperfect, we're all bumbling our way through it. But I think as a woman, you need to get to know the man's heart. I think my wife knows my heart, and I'm pretty sure she does. And even in the moments where she's thinking I'm out doing terrible things and accusing me of doing terrible things, sometimes she'll be in the midst of accusing me of stuff, and she'll be crying. And I've never asked, are you crying because it's painful to think I've done those things? Or are you crying because I'm not doing them and you can't stop yourself from thinking them? Which I think that is the case. She's crying because she knows my heart, and yet she's accusing me of being a close-hearted, hurtful person. And I think that's painful for her to feel both of those things and to know the truth, but yet can't stop her old baggage that comes up. So I let her cry because I think that's actually a way of her cleaning out that old stuff. Now, I don't just let her cry and like ignore her. I stay close. I'll keep a hand on her. So she knows my heart. So get to know the man's heart. Get to know his heart. Watch the way he treats other people. Watch the way he treats his mother. Watch the way he treats his friends. Does he have healthy, loving boundaries? Is he generous? Is he caring? Or is he critical and rude and cut people off and stingy? Does he leave generous tips? I don't know if they tip in Australia or not. Some countries they don't. Thank God. But, watch those things that show you the person's heart. And that you can submit to. If you see that heart, you can open to that. Because again, you don't get to experience the bliss of being fucked well and fucked to God. And I mean that, in all terms, not just physical or sexual. Well opened, well penetrated. You don't get that bliss until you open, until you submit. But again, you're the decider of that. You choose But, do your due diligence. And yeah, they're going to hurt you. Watch your tendency to close down and say, I knew it. They're all the same. We're clumsy. Just know that. We're clumsy. We just are. We don't feel like you feel. We don't get the things you get. We don't have the intuition you have. We just, I've heard people, a friend of mine said his daughter was going to write a book that women are crazy, men are stupid. We can be. We can be pretty stupid. But that doesn't mean we don't care and don't want to try and don't want to do better.
It seems to me like you've gained a superpower that a lot of men hope for and wish for and don't think is real, which is understanding women.
When it comes down to practicality, sometimes I go, what the fuck? Yeah, that's when I know it's an emotional statement. When I was working a lot with couples, I don't anymore, just because my business has just evolved from that. But couples would come into my office and I would start talking, these kind of things. A woman's need to feel safe and to trust and men setting the tone and leading in ways that they gives them something to follow, that feels good. Men being honest and conscious and trustworthy. And I'd have so many women just look at their husband and go, I like this guy. He gets women. And it's funny. And I'd always start with the guy in couples therapy. The guys, I take a big stick upside their head. And if I do that with a woman, they never come back to therapy. But if I start with a guy and the woman knows, okay, he's going to teach my man to be honest, to be transparent, to have good boundaries, to be trustworthy, to be vulnerable. The women then start outing themselves. They start telling on the shit they do that's detrimental to the marriage and relationships. I don't even have to bring it up. Because if I just start with the guy, often the woman will just start telling on herself. So, yeah, I've spent a lot of time. Yeah, since I was about 2 years old, I've been listening to my mother complain about my father. So I've heard plenty of the women's side of how clumsy we men are. And I love men, and I love everything about us. And yeah, I'm about us doing better.
Men are great.
A little band that just says do better. We don't have to be better. Just that's my Integration Nation band. Do better. And I just believe that for straight men, our training ground is in our relationship with the feminine. It is the best masculine initiation there is. It's the closest thing we can get to having a near-death experience, maybe without dying, is to go, deal with the feminine. So, yeah, I love what I get to do.
I have one more question before you wrap up.
All right. What do you
are you on a time crunch?
We've been at it almost 2 hours. It's dinner time. So
it's dinner time. Good.
I'm having a blast. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm not watching the clock thinking I got to go. But yeah, let's do one more question.
It's dinner time. Cool. What do you say to the men who are terrified of marriage because they've seen the consequences of divorce?
Yeah, that's the same thing that, same thing that a woman would say. Well, I've been cheated on. How can I trust a man not? I mean, yeah, we've all got our wounds. We've all been hurt. Again, going back to that, Leonard Cohen song of Hallelujah. We've all been shot. We've all been hurt. And we're here to get our hearts broken, which means we get up and do it again. And in the process, hopefully we also learn, I don't know how, but for lack of a better way to put it, we learn how to be with better people. We learn how to have better boundaries. We learn how to ask for what we want better. We learn how to do things better. So I had to answer that question that you asked me. I had to answer it personally. I've been married 3 times. So when I met my present wife, I'd been divorced twice, and I'd been single for quite some time by the time I met her. And she did not match anything if I had a list of what would my next ideal partner look like. I wasn't doing those kind of visualizations that you were doing when you found your husband. I was just, I was enjoying being single. I was having a good time. And she came into my life. And people said, how did I meet my wife? And so I was just walking down the street here in Puerto Vallarta, and I heard a voice say, hola, señor, want a massage? And I said, no, hoy, tal vez mañana. Not today, maybe tomorrow. Kept walking. And I thought, I liked her voice. I didn't remember what she looked like, but I liked her voice. And they do that here all the time. You know, the businesses, they stand outside and invite you to come in. Or they put out a boom box and play really loud music trying to get you to come in. So I went back and got a massage, and about 6 months later, without going into gory details, we started dating. She basically initiated that. And the more I knew her, you know, for about the first year we were together, we just got together once a week and had sex. That was really pretty. She came over to my place. She's a single mom, 2 young kids, working mother. We'd have sex and have something to eat, and some margaritas, and I'd give her taxi money and babysitter money and see her the next week. And after about a year, she said, I like being with you. And I said, that scared me. Yeah, it wasn't really what I was looking for. About a week, next week I saw her, I said, I like being with you too. So we actually then kind of started dating for real, right? Actually doing things together. You know, I met her kids, things like that. And so probably, you know, after I'd known her about 2.5 years, I bought this house that I live in. It's a nice big house. Now, she was a poor working mother. I had a PhD at 29. She dropped out of high school at 15. She grew up 8 out of 10 kids in poverty in Guadalajara, Mexico. I grew up in, you know, a white bread community with Boeing engineers family. You know, I'd never had severe trauma. I had good education. She had constant trauma. We spoke a different language. Culturally, we're different. She's 22 years younger than me. She has 2 kids, the same age as my granddaughter. So her son is a year older than my granddaughter. Her daughter's, my stepkids she's a year younger than my granddaughter. So I'm raising kids the age of my granddaughter. So, you know, if on paper, does any of this match up? No. I'm sure plenty of people thought, what the fuck is Robert thinking? So I buy this house. It's a big house. It's got a swimming pool, 5 bathrooms. And you know, she lives in a ghetto, in, you know, a little tin shack with no door on the bathroom, no hot water, and no glass windows in any of the windows. And you know, I move her and the kids in with me. You know, why wouldn't I do that? But before that, I really struggled with, because if you go back, if you listen to some of the podcasts I've recorded for men on dating in the past, I used to say, I'll never marry again. I'll never live with another woman. I'll never raise another man's kids. I've also been on the record saying I'll never dress a dog in clothes. I've broken all 4 of those. I got a picture right here of Nala, my pit bull, on my other computer screen, and she and I both are wearing hoodies. So I've dressed my dog in clothes. I'm married again. I live with a woman, and I'm raising another man's kids. But I had to ask myself, why wouldn't I marry this woman? She'd never been married before. I already knew of her insecurities. I knew if we, you know, lived together and, you know, I paid all the bills, owned the house, you know, and I could, she'd never know, could I just kick her out at any time? If I died, would she get my Social Security retirement? And so I got to thinking, 2 things. One was, if I had never had a bad experience with another woman, if I never had a bad experience in my previous marriages, would I be projecting that onto her? Well, no. And are any of those bad experiences her fault? No, she's not the cause of them. Is she like the 2 previous relationships I had that didn't work out? No, she's very different than my previous wives. I mean, she got her own baggage, but she's very different than those women. And I thought, okay, so question number 1, if I didn't have that baggage and wasn't projecting it onto her, would I marry her? And the question is, yeah, why wouldn't I? The second question was, what's the most loving thing to do? That was a no-brainer. I knew what the most loving thing to do was. And so I did. So we got married. And there have been times I go, what was I thinking? You know, she drives me crazy, like any partner is going to drive you crazy at times. And, you know, she loves me dearly. She thinks I'm amazing. She supports me in my work. My standard of living has risen since we've been together, and I pay all the bills. I mean, she didn't work outside the home, and I still have more money. I paid off the house in 3 years. I'm in good health. She saved my life, literally. I'd be dead if not for her. So I see some points for that. You know, and I'm going to be really crass. She fucks me like a cheap Mexican whore. She's told me I'll never say no to sex. She says, I'll have sex with you even if I'm mad at you, because I'm never mad at your cock. So she's got a sense of humor. She walks into any room and lights the room up. She's just got a charisma. Everywhere her and I go, almost anywhere, but especially here in Puerto Vallarta, we're treated like royalty, mainly because of her personality. And, would I've ever drawn her up on paper and said, that's my ideal, partner? No. And am I so grateful I went back and got the massage? I am. So, we've got all got our wounds, and we're all going to project them onto our partners. We're going to project our wounds that our parents gave us onto our partners. We're all doing it. But the beauty is, if we're conscious, we can let our partners help clean that stuff out.
It's beautiful. That's a wonderful way to end. Now, Robert, where can we find you? And what?
Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
Puerto Vallarta. Just fly down to Puerto Vallarta.
I'm here a lot.
Yeah. Online, where can we find you?
Okay.
What courses are you offering? Just let us know.
Best two places. Number one is my website at drglover.com. Just drglover.com. My classes are on there. I've got 4 video courses. One called All the Way In, about intimate relationships. Another called Positive Emotional Tension, about how men can create the kind of emotional tension women need to have attraction and desire and keep it over time. Another one called Nice Guys Don't Finish Last, They Rot in Middle Management. It's about work and career. Another one called The Ruminating Brain, about people that ruminate and spin in their head and have a strong internal critic. I do workshops, mostly here in my home, down here in Puerto Vallarta. I have podcasts. So all that's on drglover.com. And then for men, if they're interested in a men's program, integrationnation.net. Then go put their email address in and we'll send them information. And we open up enrollment once a month for about 72 hours every 28 days. And we give guys a place to go connect with other men and be vulnerable and get structure, level up to their best self, live their best life. And so
and by the way,
best places.
With Integration Nation, I don't know how much it costs, and I don't need to ask, but how much as a man, just for our one listener who I'm assuming is male, I have about 95% listeners who are male.
Okay.
What would you pay to have healthy relationships with women, to attract women, to get over the baggage from your past and level yourself up? I mean,
how much would you pay to have the world's leading authority on the Nice Guy syndrome? How much would you pay?
If it solves your issues in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, it's worth the price of a new car. I have to I'm
gonna get you to record my marketing videos.
I just want more healthy men in my life, Robert. I mean, I've seen so many men, especially in Seattle. Somehow, all the men in Seattle, especially in the comedy scene where I was, in the art scene, they're all hunched over and they hate themselves and they hate their masculinity.
You were in Seattle?
Yeah, I was in Seattle. Yeah.
You were. What part of Seattle were you in? How come we're just now talking about this at the end of the podcast? What part of Seattle were you in?
In the north area near Green Lake.
Okay, Green Lake. Yeah, I was born at Northgate Hospital, which is no longer there. And I grew up in Bellevue, back before it was Bellevue. Back before all Microsoft and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and all that stuff. My mother lives in Sammamish, which is just east of Bellevue, a little bit, on Lake Sammamish. So yeah, I was born and raised there, spent most of my life there. That's why I live in Mexico now, because I had to get away from the rain. Seattle just has that reputation of being so nice. We joke about the 4-way stops in Seattle. Oh, you go. No, you go. No, you go. No, you go. Nobody will just go.
No, and every time I would go to cross a road, right? And I would stay and I would wait for the cars, and the cars would just stop in the middle of the road for me. And it's don't do that. I'm supposed to wait for you. It's dangerous. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice things can be dangerous. So I agree with you. I have spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars on my own personal development, and it's worth every bit of it. And yes, the membership program I have is amazingly affordable. And even with that, men go, oh, that's too much. And when I say amazingly affordable, it's less than a tank of gas a month. So, to me, that's amazingly affordable. Men tell me all the time. I say, Robert, you're not charging enough for what you offer. And I go, I'm okay with that. I want everybody who wants to be here to be able to be here. And so, guys, yeah, we got to make an investment in ourselves. Men are hesitant to do that. You know, we'll spend money on the woman we care about, but will we spend the same amount of money on ourselves? No, that makes us feel selfish. No, you know, we'll tough it up. Oh yeah, we'll drive the old car and give the new car to the wife, that kind of thing. No, we need to take good care of ourselves. And that's the gift we can give to our partner or children or a future partner. Women watch men. Does he take good care of himself? As simple as this sounds, women tell me all the time, things that they look at in guys. Are his shoes clean and polished? Are his fingernails well trimmed and clean? Has he trimmed his ear and nose hair? Those are little things that men can do to take care of themselves that women notice. And I promise you guys, you fail the test of the dirty fingernails, the dirty shoes, and the ears and nose hair, she ain't going to get naked with you. The tests begin at that basic of a level. So guys, take good care of yourselves. Women are turned on by a man who's taking good care of himself because they know, the woman knows he'll take good care of her.
Absolutely. I agree. And pursue your goals. Do what you love in life. Find a path and just go for it. She'll hop on for the ride if she likes it. All right.
There you go. I'll quit talking now.
I'm going to let you go. Have a wonderful dinner. Thank you so much for coming on.
This was fun. I'm glad you just started the recorder and we just went with it.
Yeah, me too. All right. Let us know down below what you think of it, and I'll talk to you guys later.
And don't say any mean things because she's a good person. You can say mean things about me. That's all right.
If you say mean things, make sure to share it with all of your friends while you say the mean things, and then have them share it around and say more. That's fine. Just share it if you're going to say mean things. All right.